Hello, I am Radagast, and this is GMOP's Mystic View, and I am joined by my co-host, Shelley. Hello, Shelley.
Hello, and hello, everyone.
So our topic for tonight is sovereignty, why it's important, and also to remove it from, I think, what I think is some of the cluttering. Can you embrace this subject, Shelley?
I think what we are bringing out tonight is more important than ever. Sovereignty is now incumbent that we make these choices from a place of accountability, knowing that really it comes down to you making a choice. We can no longer just sit by and wait and hope a larger source of authority can make choices for us.
Yes. And I'd like to kind of where one sources their sovereignty, I think, is an important focus. Because for many people, sovereignty might have to do with belonging to a nation.
Mm-hmm.
And probably in most cases, when people think sovereign, it's, the sovereign nation and you're a sovereign in there. And in the old days, kings and queens were the top sovereigns. And, but I think, first of all, given that we have the UN and there's all kinds of craziness around what a sovereign country is, and is anybody sovereign, especially with so many countries in debt? Who's in debt to who, and how sovereign can you be when you're in debt to somebody? So perhaps we should toss out, the concept of country sovereignty in this conversation, not as a big concept, but for the purpose of where we want to find some strength and empowerment for ourselves. And also to discard the whole legal name, legal fiction, and all the things that are totally relevant to sovereignty, but in many ways create rabbit holes. And I also feel what I'm going to call the closet sovereign, the one who's kind of like by themselves in their closet, oh, I'm sovereign, as opposed to sovereignty that is about being empowered. Now, when you source your sovereignty, Shelley, where do you source that from?
What I have learned over the years is that pure source energy is within me. And once I connected with that and knew that with certainty, now I can make choices and be accountable for those choices at any time on any topic. But it really did come down to taking the responsibility for those choices. And you know what? With that comes a little caveat. It's okay to make a mistake. It's okay to go back and change your mind, but it's still up to you to make your own choice. And when you are comfortable with doing that, then I think you are moving toward becoming sovereign.
Mm-hmm. Once again, most people will kind of create their sovereignty like from a nation state, or if you belong to a kingdom, you had that sovereign and you were, sovereign within that system. I know for me, and I'm basically going to give the same answer you did, is that creator is my sovereign. The sovereign in kind of like in whatever hierarchical thing. And then, of course, I think in our hierarchy, it's more like concentric circles and as opposed to a pyramid. So it's not really a hierarchy, but we need words that convey something. So I would say that being one of the created from the creator is where I draw my concept of sovereignty from.
I agree with you. There's no one between us and our creator.
And so this comes, so to me, this helps empower us when we start seeing legislation or quote unquote laws, like you can't collect rainwater. Now, from the way the whole planet is, once again, creation was designed for the created. There was first, there was a planet before we were on it because the planet was being brought up to what would be habitable for us. The development over millennia of the proper fruits, nuts, plants, and other edible things that we could survive on free. Basically, we were given a planet with fresh air, clean water, and abundant food, all for the taking. Now, obviously, you get enough people in an area where there's food, you might have to actually work it out with each other. I'm quite sure I'm going to kind of make this very simple. The amount of bananas in any given area when you have a bunch of chimps or gorillas, I'm quite sure there's, an apportioning if it wasn't enough for everybody. So, obviously with greater populations comes the need for greater coordination. But still, what is on the earth was given to us. So when we have somebody like a company like Nestle's thinking that water is not a right, this is an affront to creation. When you have somebody, any government, any state telling you you cannot collect rainwater, the Creator gave us rainwater. That's how we replenish. That's how we have fresh water. That's how all of our water systems, including our aquifers, are replenished by the rain that comes out of the sky. That was given to us. That whole hydrodynamic system was created to support us. So anybody getting in between us and what was given to us is a thief and a usurper. So I really would like to use sovereignty for people to empower themselves, so that it's not like, the government says, I can't collect rainwater. I mean, most courts you might go into, you have to swear on a Bible. So that means that even the court embraces God. So it's like, can the court be honest about the fact that the world was created for us? We are the creation. So everything on here, and it even says that it was given to us. So who is anybody, including governments, to say you cannot collect what was given to us? And I don't hear that conversation. I hear people complaining about, oh my God, I can't believe the government did this to us. But they just seem to be offended by the concept without understanding why they're offended, and how that offense is actually, to me, is like source, or based in source, and knowing who you really are in creation, and how this is basically demonic. Legislating against collecting rainwater is a demonic thing.
Yes, it is, and this is where we need to be accountable for our thoughts and what we're accepting. As you mentioned earlier, it's the corporation and the idea of corporations that are really eroding, perhaps, that right to those the simple effects of being born onto a planet where you have the ability to drink the water and breathe the air and so on. However, it's the complacency of the people allowing companies and corporations such as Nestle to get away with what they're doing. It comes down to, we need to make a sovereign choice and stand by that choice. It's really simple. And then, as you described the concentric circles, then once you've made your own choice, now you can reach out and create sovereign community and allow that to expand, where we share and cooperate with one another in perhaps food production and all of these kind of essential effects of living sovereign on a planet. It's not about being isolated ever, but it does come down to every single person organically needs to come to terms with making their own choice and standing by that choice.
A company like Nestle's, to me, is almost like a bit of a target, given as they have so many products out. I mean, we all love chocolate. I love chocolate. Matter of fact, Choco Love. Really good chocolate, organic chocolate. But I mean, in many ways, we could just, stop buying Nestle's product, as many Nestle's products we want. And then, just maybe, let people know that we're boycotting Nestle's until they recant on this whole that they own the water. Of course, I don't see much success for that.
Well, maybe you don't see the success, but perhaps there's more success happening than what you're aware of, because I, for one, stopped buying my favorite product, which was Perrier. I, for one, put out and educate all my neighbors, anybody that's willing to listen, just in natural conversation. I bring that to their attention. Hey, did you know this is Nestle? And Nestle owns this company, and Nestle says you're not able to collect your own rainwater and that you don't have the right to drink clean water.
Mm-hmm. I mean, not to mention that the rainwater coming out of the sky is about as clean as the skies are, but it's but it's probably still staying ahead of what we can pull out of the groundwater. I mean, I'm in one of the main beautiful water supplies areas in Virginia, and as I'm moving into a new place, I'm going to have to pay a water bill. And this water that they're delivering to me, of course, because it's a municipality, this very good water that is fine the way it is, they have to add chlorine by, state guidelines. So the whole idea, I mean, I've lived in rural areas and gotten my water from a well for over 20 years. And the whole idea that I'm not now about to pay for water is a little bit ridiculous.
Well, it brings to mind another question too, is that the resistance for us to purify our own water, this too is being held against us, not permitted. People have gone to jail. People have had their businesses destroyed for taking it upon themselves to purify their own water.
Mm-hmm. I remember a man who owned a restaurant. It was in a very rural area of New York, and the water, I mean, just to drink the water they served there was a good reason to go to the restaurant. Mm-hmm. And what he said, what he would do is that when he had it set up to chlorinate the water, but he only cooked it up when they came to inspect it. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And otherwise he did it. Now, there was another place in Woodstock that was a Chinese restaurant that also had some of the best water. And it was another place where you could just be, give me a glass of water before dinner because it's going to be so good. And that apparently the town came in and made them chlorinate, and they didn't set it up in a way that they could change it. And the water became unpleasant with the addition of the chlorine to it, because before it was wet. Now it kind of had a weird kind of a tang to it. Mm-hmm. But getting back to sovereignty, for me, this in a world that we're actually clashing over concepts of God. There's, little civilizational clashes going that sometimes often God is why people are clashing. So to me, God is important enough to people to kill other people over. Can we somehow find the good in believing in a God and start using that as what our God-given rights are?
That's very important, because once you start using your own God-given brain and you connect that to your own God-given heart, pretty soon it becomes very apparent that killing people, that taking away other people's rights, eroding other people's rights, is clearly not the path.
Yeah. As we spoke in an earlier mystic view, maybe one of the first ones I did with you about, Trump and what endures, kind of touched on this subject a little bit.
Right. So here's the thing. It comes down to, what are we doing about it? Are we just going to turtle and allow these decisions to be made for us? This is not sovereign. Mm-hmm. There is no way to regain sovereignty without becoming willful, soulful, accountable for your choices. Mm-hmm. Otherwise your water will continue to be chlorinated. You won't have the ability to grow food, educate your children, be free in any of these ways. And that's why it's so much more important today than it really ever has been.
And getting, with the vaccination being a hot topic, what I would really, and I think I've said this on other shows, but I feel I can't reiterate it enough, because I'm not hearing it as a conversation. I'm still hearing the polarization of, like, they shouldn't force us to get vaccines, and the other ones go, but vaccines are good for us. And I don't find these people to necessarily have to be in different camps. They can kind of unite with where we have the right to do with our bodies what we want to do. And I just really feel a big educational part has to be on the part of people who endorse or like vaccines to, by all means, avail themselves of what's available. And then and usually the reason people would like measles, mumps, things like that, all the childhood diseases I had and most of my friends had. And that usually if somebody in the neighborhood got it, the other kids were sent there to get it because that was how we got inoculated. And we all, I don't know of one person who ever got hospitalized from any of this, never mind being deceased from it. I know if you take millions and millions of people, you can find a couple of dead people amongst millions who actually succumbed to these diseases. There might even be a divine purpose in that, but that's an emotional issue that I will leave alone. But I just really feel that if we could just stop feeling polarized about this and just say, look, this is just a choice. And those of us who want our children to get ill should be allowed to do it because we want the real lifelong inoculation for them. And we want it to occur while they're young and not when they're in adults, when these diseases are definitely more of a challenge. From what I understand, they're certainly a great way of helping the immune system to form. Vaccinations, I think, kind of retard the immune system because the immune system is a dynamic system. It's actually thoughtful. And when somebody else does the job for you, you don't learn anything. You can't learn a skill not doing it. Your immune system is not going to learn the skill of protecting you from diseases in the future by not having had to cope with them when they was young.
Well, here's something else your immune system is affected by, and that is fear.
Mm-hmm.
And it's most often fear that's driving the choice for vaccination. And I'm not saying that across the board, but if people are honest and want to go to the origin of what their choice is being made based on, a high percentage is based on fear. Mm-hmm. If they would take it upon themselves to educate themselves, take the time to look into both sides equally, and then make a choice from that very balanced, clear mind, and just know that your choice is best for you, and you don't need to make choices for your neighbor. It's okay to let your neighbor make his or her own sovereign choice as well. But I think the most important thing in this conversation is looking at what's the difference when you make a choice from fear and what is the difference when you make a choice from love. Mm-hmm. So it's beyond just polarization.
Well, the strategies, especially the strategy of those who don't want to vaccinate their children, they seem to think the strategy is to educate the people who want to vaccinate their children about the dangers of vaccines. I think that's wrongheaded. I mean, these people think that this is correct. So if you're going to show them the dangers, you're kind of telling them that they've been wrong. There's no way to really get somebody to ally with you by starting out by making them wrong. So this is, to me, what we don't want to necessarily educate those. We don't want to take this. It's almost like we're being superior. It's like, oh, if you only knew, you wouldn't. That's not what we want. I don't really want them to know anything they don't want to know. What I want them to know is that everybody has a right to choose for their family. And then just based on, if we use regular reasoning and logic, those who vaccinate are safe from their perspective. So therefore, the ones who are unvaccinated are a complete non-threat. So that's really, I think, what the people who don't want to vaccinate their children need to educate the people who want to vaccinate their children, simply that my children are not a threat to your children. So can we just end it, and we'll see to our families as we see fit. Let's not divide on this. Let's just come together as parents, each one honoring the other family for doing what they think is appropriate for their family. Because I hear most people who want the vaccines to stop think that they're going to stop the vaccines by getting the other people to see how evil vaccines are. That I can't stress to you people out there how wrong-headed I think that is. We need to come together and find respect for each other. This is what we do, and you don't respect by somebody else by coming along and go, oh, you're seriously misinformed if you only knew. That is a really good way to have somebody put up a block and not have a conversation. So the thing is, we have to find out what we can have a conversation about. And the conversation is really about sovereignty, which ties into respect. And it ties into building a stronger community, because now we don't have these different camps. We don't have the anti-vaccine versus the pro-vaccine. We just have caring families who are doing what they think is fit, and nobody's going to give the other person any crap. And again, sometimes the thing I hear from the pro-vaccine is, my children are at risk. No, they're vaccinated. They're not at risk. Where is the breakdown in the logic here? And I think some of it is because I think some of the talking heads in the media bring that up, because they're counting on people they're counting on the cognitive dissonance that comes from polarized thinking. I mean, really, polarized thinking is what creates cognitive dissonance. Because there's that space that all kinds of crazy stuff can happen. And generally, when you're polarized, you're kind of like thinking from this perspective or this perspective. And again, you're thinking about the ends of the perspectives instead of the field where they happen. And I really feel for us to have a dialogue, we're going to have to enter into the common field where things happen. And so really, vaccination is a big topic right now. And anybody, and I'm quite sure if you're watching the show, you probably might be in the don't vaccinate. I'm not going to say anti-vaccination, just not vaccinate. And the outreach for us to those who think vaccination is good is just let them know your children are protected. Now let me see to my children. I want my children. This is how I want my children to be inoculated, through the natural fashion. You choose the medical fashion. As long as we're inoculated, that's all that matters. And while I'm waiting for my children to be ill, your children are safe. So we have nothing to do. Let's just, let's talk about education instead of vaccination.
And with all that polarization conversation, we're discussing boundaries, and we're discussing how we are divided amongst ourselves. So I think we've made some strides in bridging some of those boundaries, like cultural boundaries, for example, or the borders between countries. I mean, if you look at the planet, our great creator certainly did not create boundaries anywhere. So really where we're going is that this is all one. We're one family here. And the polarization or the boundaries in reality do not exist.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I believe that there are healthy boundaries, but they're not polarized boundaries. They're simply sovereign area.
Yes, with respect.
Yes.
Because this is a journey.
So before we pause for our break and good news, do you have any closing remarks?
Well, I'm really hoping that through our dialogue, you will take this conversation up also with your friends and your family and your neighbors, and really look at what to be sovereign, and how can you become sovereign? Where are you feeling disempowered? Where you're not, that's the block where you're not sovereign. And so it's in everybody's best interest, and your health will flourish, and your emotional health will flourish, and your spirituality will flourish as you draw closer to that sovereign state.
I think I'd like to just close with, please give sovereignty a consideration, and consider your sovereignty as coming from the Creator. Really try to ground that celestial authority in yourself. Feel that this world was created for you, not for corporations to manage for you, and not even for a government to manage for you. The more we can self-manage, the more we can support each other, the less we will need these various outside people who have showed up largely because we might have asked for them at some kind of level. And then, as they often say, watch what you wish for. So that's the first segment. We'll be back with the good news, and we'll see you in a minute. Shelley, you want to say goodbye for the segment?
I'm just looking forward to seeing you all again real soon.
Okay.
Global Mission of Peace is a worldwide team of like-hearted individuals focused on a new paradigm of unity, peace, and understanding.
Unity with all people across all borders.
Peace with every faith and religion.
Understanding the true nature of the political, financial, and power structures of our world.
Our focus is not in changing these structures, but in offering a new reality, a new consciousness. Don't you think it's time?
Okay, we're back now with Mystic View on sovereignty and its implications. And of course, I'm joined by my co-host, Shelley, again. Hello, Shelley.
Hello, and I'm happy sharing our good news.
Yes, the good news. So I'm just going to start it off with something that probably might get missed because a lot of people get their news from mainstream media and they have a certain way they like to report things. So as we know, Russia started an air campaign to help Syria fight off the terrorists back on September 30th of 2015. And they have since, basically stopped most hostilities. The good news is that refugees are returning to cities, including pretty wrecked cities like Damascus, Homs, Aleppo. People are coming back from other countries and going to moving back to cities, even though living there is not easy. The hostilities have ended, and so these people have decided to go back and just live there so that they can rebuild their lives. And so the good news is that displaced people are returning home thanks to the efforts of Russia and Iran helping Syria to fend off the terrorists who have dubious sponsors, we'll just put it that way. And I think you had something about meditation, Shelley?
Well, I did. To follow on what you brought was global good news. And so with this new report and new science backing up how meditators have brains that are actually physically younger than non-meditators, that brings it back to a local level of good news. So the researchers are finding that experienced meditators are at least seven or 8 years younger physically with their brain cognitive functions and so on than non-meditators. And so that's a little invitation for you all to start considering trying meditation if you don't do it already, and maybe increasing the number of opportunities you give yourself.
Well, I know Deepak Chopra told, kind of informed in his early books that how he got tuned in or turned on or educated about Ayurveda was from Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, who kind of brought TM or transcendental meditation, a form of meditation, certainly not the only kind of meditation one can do. But that's, kind of probably the most branded form of meditation. And Deepak has to be around 70 years of age. And if you've ever seen him, his hair is still largely black, at least last time I saw him, and a very basically unlined face. So, I think there's a good example. I wish we knew more people who meditated, knew their biological age, and compare them to non-meditators just physically, or visually, I guess is the word I want to say. I might have mentioned my age before, but I'm 63 years of age. And when I tell people my age, more often than not, they're shocked. A lot of times it's because they're younger than me and look older than me. So that's usually fairly shocking to them because they usually figure I'm younger than them. And when they find out that I'm older than them, a little was like, what's going on here? And meditation has certainly played a part. Meditation with prayer, and to me, good food. But to me, eating properly is kind of something that occurs to you while meditating. If you meditate, you start getting clear on a lot of things. And one of the things you get clear on is how important diet is in brain function and how you age.
Right, and meditating has greater impact even than that, because it's going to affect your attitude. It's going to affect how you move. It's going to affect how you respond and the energy with which you respond to things. You're not overwhelmed easily.
So I think maybe we could provide just a small service at the end of this good news portion, maybe to just discuss meditation for a second.
Sure.
Because a lot of people say, "Oh, I don't know how to meditate," as if there is some kind of instruction booklet or there's a specific way to meditate. Now, when it comes to transcendental meditation, there is a process for it, but that's transcendental meditation, as opposed to the bigger umbrella of different kinds of meditation. Now, Westerners are known for having very active minds, the monkey mind, we'll call it. And so when I first started meditating and encountered the monkey mind, I decided I would give the monkey something to do. And that was how I started saying, well, I kind of practice a form of active Western meditation, which is, again, working with what your strengths are. So if you have this really active monkey mind, how about giving it some metaphysical tasks? So what I would give the monkey to do is, okay, I want to meditate around my base chakra. Let's get a nice rich red. And I would just sit there until the red was right and go, okay, that's good. Now let's make a nice orange. Maybe I'd want to do like a youthening meditation. So I would just imagine myself feeling youthful, my skin feeling supple, maybe imagining myself running or something like that. And so, these are ways of taking the active monkey mind that most Westerners have and giving it a chore. Instead of letting the monkey just go around doing things, since it is your monkey, you tell it what you would like it to do inside your mind and make it productive. So, I mean, this is just my hint of what to do if people say, oh, I can't quiet my mind. Don't worry about quieting. Give it a task.
Yeah, I like that idea, because one of the most popular forms of meditation is to do visualization, because that is helping to still the mind. And really, this is where the most benefit will come in, was when we can just empty ourselves. All the ancient religious texts would always tell us, empty yourselves, empty your mind, so that you can receive. And that's what meditation is for. And another technique that we can offer is simply hold your breath. With your eyes closed, maybe raise them maybe like 35 or 45 degrees angle, and just hold your breath. Or just simply listen to the silence, because then your brain can be active without processing.
Yes.
And one last thing. Yeah, go ahead.
Why don't you give them one last thing?
As you're sitting in meditation or laying in meditation, just try feeling, because if you're feeling, you're not using the active part of your brain in thinking. So just try exclusively feeling. So that might be feeling the chair that you're sitting on. It might be feeling the air, the temperature in the room. Just focus on one thing.
Well, I was thinking with breath, holding your breath, but of course another thing is actually just following your breathing. Just paying attention to your breathing.
Yes.
Again, you have something to focus on, so focus on your breaths. So the whole thing is to try and to demystify meditation and make it really accessible. I mean, even a heart meditation. I mean, we recently did a circle show with you and I as reverends, and with Reverend Ray Bernardes, and we all came to the consensus that to communicate properly with the Creator or Divine, we really want to do it through our hearts. And so another thing to sometimes just quiet and go inside your heart and see if there's something that your heart wants to tell you. Maybe even bring a problem to your heart and focus your energy. I mean, really know where your heart is in your anatomy and make sure that you are aware of an energy. Even if you want, think of green, think of rose, but green is a very good color. But kind of make sure that you stay focused there, because sometimes when I'm doing heart meditations, and I'm getting some answers, and all of a sudden I'll notice that the quality of the information suddenly has kind of gotten a little edgy, and I actually can feel that my energy has dropped into my solar plexus, and I'm starting to fall into monkey mind a little bit. And as soon as I lift it back up, I actually can feel the band lift from like where my solar plexus is up into my proper rib cage, into my sternum. The thought's clear. So there's plenty you can do with an active mind, as long as you kind of tell yourself going into it what your plan of action. Have a metaphysical plan of action, or some kind of meditate, some goal to achieve in your meditation, other than just quietness. Quietness will come once you get enough stuff processed. In the meantime, might as well make use of give that, again, that very busy mind, give it tasks. And that would be my recommendation to help you towards meditation when you think you don't know how to do it.
You can even take this to another level and do active meditation. You can do a walking meditation where you're just completely present with the pace that you're taking, or the feel of the earth under your feet. Or if you're at the gym and you're on the treadmill, you can just zone out and get straight into that run. That's a form of meditation.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
One thing, before we close, I want to bring this last little bit of good news.
Mm-hmm.
And that is to acknowledge that everyone can make their own good news. Not only can, but I'd like to challenge everyone, or invite everyone, please, let's write our own good news. And let's acknowledge that our own good news is equally, if not more important than the news that you're hearing in the media. And let's start posting our own good news. Let's let a wave of our own good news be acknowledged. We did a lot of good happening.
Yes. And they can post it on our Facebook Global Mission to Peace page, or our Global Mission to Peace TV page. So if you've got some good news, why not let us know?
Yeah, please do.
So thank you. Thank you, Shelley. Thank you to our listeners. And until next time, God bless you.